Well, now we move to Louisiana, where a millionaire has admitted to being the mastermind behind an attempted kidnapping of his estranged wife. And in a horrific twist of events, the two men who he had allegedly hired to kidnap his wife drowned during a pursuit. Horrible. Just a horrible case. So the husband is 51-year-old Lawrence Handley. He was the CEO and founder of a chain of substance abuse centers in Louisiana called Townsend. And when he sold this chain in 2015, he made $21 million in cash. Okay, so when we say millionaire, we are saying millionaire. This is a man with a lot of access, okay? Something clearly was going on in his relationship with his estranged wife, as you will see. And the allegations here are, well, I mean, some of this is substantiated by how the kidnapping unfolded in real time in Louisiana as the poor woman is being driven in a van. Okay, so let's go. First, let's look at what he has actually pled to in court. So on July 26, Lawrence Handley accepted a plea deal for the 2017 kidnapping attempt, which not only involved the abduction of his wife, Shanda, but also her teen daughter and their neighbor. They were actually tied up because they were in the house when the kidnappers broke in. He pleaded guilty to 3 counts of second-degree kidnapping, according to the district attorney's office. According to the prosecutor, Lawrence Handley hired Sylvester Bracely and Arsenio Haynes, both of them from Jackson, Mississippi, to kidnap the estranged wife from her home in Lafayette, Louisiana. Okay, Sylvester and Arsenio were both 27 at the time. As I've said, they've since passed. Now let's go to the crime and when this happened in 2017. It was August of 2017, and Sylvester and Arsenio barged into the wife's home in Lafayette, handcuffed the neighbor, Michelle, who was visiting, and the teenage daughter, because the kidnappers wanted the wife, not the daughter, not the neighbor. They were, collateral damage because they happened to be in the house?
Exactly. I think that it was botched from the beginning. When they broke into that house and the information they had, they must have believed that she would be by herself, the wife. And they were caught by surprise to find the neighbor, an adult neighbor, and the daughter there. So they actually handcuffed them and left them behind and took just a wife. So the first step, they're screwed up. This thing was botched all the way.
I'm going to say that the whole plan was screwy from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Because this...
And thank goodness. Sorry, but thank goodness it was. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, because what's so ridiculous about this plan that we're going to get into is that the husband's defense, and his attorney even said this, that, this is just a huge misunderstanding. This was a scheme in order for the husband to prove to the wife of what a hero he is, that he was going to come in and rescue her. Give me a break. This is how he plans to impress his estranged wife and get her back?
Yeah. Well, again, good luck with that defense. Good luck with that one.
Exactly. Good luck with that one. Okay, so let's get back to the day of the kidnapping. So the men took the wife at gunpoint. They put a bag over her head and they forced her into a van. The van was going from Lafayette, Louisiana to Baton Rouge. While driving, the kidnappers themselves caught the attention of police because the kidnappers started driving erratically. They started driving on the shoulder of the road because they were annoyed the traffic was delaying them. Okay? So police see this and say, what the heck's going on here? Police try to pull them over. And when that happens, the two suspects, the kidnappers, run out of the van and they run toward the canal and they go into the canal. And that is where they drowned. Right.
So thank goodness for the erratic driving, because who knows how this thing would have ended up. I can't see her walking away from this unscathed unless that happened. But the erratic driving is what's probably saved her life, and they felt cornered, like they had no other option but to run to the canal and jump in. Now, I've worked a lot of these canals for a variety of reasons in my career, and in Louisiana, besides everything else that concerns me about the dangers of a canal, the gators, gators and snakes and the wildlife, I mean, they're more than a nuisance there. They're a major concern. But these guys felt so brave or so scared that their only option was to jump in the canal. If this was a man-made canal, and it appeared that it was, they're concrete sides. Once you jump in, if you're not thinking about how you're going to get out, they're so slick. You cannot climb out. And it's very common for people to jump in for a swim or for whatever reason and find themselves trapped or in a current. And it took them both out. But
and I'm not defending the kidnappers by any means,
right.
But even if they had been prosecuted for this crime, which they appear to have taken part in, under no circumstances would they ever have been killed for this.
Correct.
And so for me, it's not that I'm having sympathy for a criminal, but they did not deserve to die. They did not deserve to die, to lose their lives over this. Now, I know what you're saying. Who knows what could have happened to this woman, and she may have been murdered. We don't know, but she wasn't. But she wasn't. So when the police go to search the van, they find the wife, and she's been stripped of some of her clothes. She said that she had been threatened, that she was kidnapped, and she said that the kidnappers were going to take her to her husband. So I find that interesting. Did the kidnappers tell her that? Did she figure that out?
Well, they were heading in the direction, supposedly they were going to a camp that they had at another location where the husband and wife had been to on prior occasions. Maybe she recognized the direction. Again, her eyes were covered, I believe, but maybe she got a sense for what direction they were going. So who knows? It could have been said just to keep her calm, to minimize the resistance. Who knows? But I don't trust a thing they were saying.
No,
Sorry,
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. You can't really trust frankly, you can't trust anyone with this because there's so many inconsistencies with what was going on. So 4 days later, the husband is arrested in a motel in Louisiana. And according to court filings, Lawrence, this is the husband, apparently had the items that were necessary to kidnap someone, to bind and torture and abuse her. So that leads me to believe that he wasn't going to try and sweet talk his way back into his wife's life, right?
Right.
Because I'd have roses, not implements of torture with me.
Yeah.
Just tossing it out there. I know I'm old-fashioned that way. So, again, the husband's attorney claims this really was a scheme to win her back, and it just didn't work out. I don't believe that for a minute. I think that's a bunch of bunk.
No. I don't know if they're still claiming that as a defense, but eventually police did find a few videos that had some interesting stuff on it. Some of the videos they found was Lawrence himself planning the kidnapping, purchasing the handcuffs, and renting the van for the two thugs, all on video. So there's, again, evidence item number A.
And once again, no roses or a box of chocolates
no
in any of
those
those lists, right?
No.
And apparently, as you said, there is surveillance video. There's even some audio that apparently captured the conversation between the husband and the two hired kidnappers. Now, this is what's so bizarre. According to one of the police, one of the videos claimed that Lawrence is heard saying that he would pay the men with 19 gold bars. Who pays for anything with gold bars? And then let alone, let's say you're given the gold bars, just like, what do you do with them? Where do you take gold bars? Okay.
I didn't see that part. Nice catch on the gold bars. That's interesting. Only because in the last year, I've had 3 other cases where payments were attempted, at least said were going to be made in gold bars. Every one of these were BS schemes. So I, of course, no one does that. That's just another ploy. But gold bars are apparently appealing to folks if they actually exist.
Wow. So this is a trend, Louis. See, this is the thing when you've got like an active investigator as your guest.
Yeah.
It's like, so this is a trend now, gold bars.
Yeah, gold bars. It's a thing, right? And let's say if someone wants to pay in gold bars,
No.
Doubt that. So doubt it, and yeah, it's not going to happen most likely. I find it interesting that he's the charges are kidnapping, variations of kidnapping, not just for the wife, but for the kidnapping of the child and the neighbor, the adult neighbor in the house. Different levels because they were prevented from moving and within the home. But the death of the two thugs, I'm wondering. I'd love to hear how the conversation is going. Again, not out of the realm of possibilities. They died in the commission of a felony. Does he, as the orchestrator of this, have some culpability for their death? And that's something that may still have to be answered here in the future.
Perhaps
criminal culpability. Sorry.
Oh, criminal. Okay, because I was going to say maybe in a civil court, maybe their families have some recourse against this millionaire. Right.
So things could get interesting.
They could. Again, I'm not defending them, but I don't think that they deserve to die.
No.
I certainly don't. All right. So now, here's the other interesting thing about this. So initially, Lawrence pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. So that then forced the court to check his mental status, and the court found that he was mentally competent and he could indeed stand trial and that it would move forward in 2018. So when that move didn't work, that's when he decided to enter into the plea deal.
Right.
So as part of the plea deal that was entered into in July, Lawrence pleaded guilty to 2 counts of second-degree kidnapping, 1 count of attempted second-degree kidnapping, and he will now be facing between 15 and 35 years in prison. The plea deal allows Lawrence to avoid a charge of aggravated kidnapping. This is what they took off the table because that would have carried a mandatory life sentence in Louisiana. And my question is, why'd they take that off the table?
Yeah.
You've got 2 people dead.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe for cooperation. I don't know. It's something that should have stayed on that table a little longer. It's the last thing you do if you've run out of all recourses. So I don't have an answer why that would be justified at this point.
And I suppose it's possible that he's like 53 years old and he's going to be in prison maybe a minimum of 15 years to maybe 35. So it could end up being almost like a life in prison, but who knows?
Yeah,
my guess is he probably will be released early like everybody else.
Right.
Now, here's the other interesting thing about what was going on in Lawrence's life. This is according to his own attorney. He's made these statements. He said that Lawrence, the husband, had been using cocaine and methamphetamine on the days leading up to the plot.
Well, maybe that would have showed up in his system when they arrested him and they took blood. So I think that can be confirmed or denied if that's there. But that, again, that's pushing toward the insanity plea, that he was not in his normal mental state. And I got to say, out of the 1,000 times I've seen that in my career, I've seen it come to fruition one time. It's a very common ploy, as we all know, and very difficult to show that you were, in fact, out of your mind as a defense.
Yeah. Well, Rich Man over here was going to pull every trick that he could to get out of this thing.
Yeah.
And he not only made his millions in these substance abuse centers in Louisiana, but he also sold vitamins, energy supplements, and then calcium cream. So this is a guy I don't know what calcium cream is. I know, I'm sure all of you on YouTube will be telling me the benefits of calcium cream when this drops. But again, this is a guy who's made a lot of money, so access and getting things done should not have been an issue. However, there is something fishy in his background, okay? Mm-hmm. So I said he made $20 million on the sale of these substance abuse centers. So in 2005, he has a very strange conviction. He was convicted for passing a fraudulent check, a $22,000 check that he used to try and charter a private plane. If you're a millionaire, why do you have to pass a bad check?
Right. Just not a good bookkeeper. So who knows? Right. Doesn't make sense, but they never do.
I do not know. All right. So Shanda and Lawrence married in 2006. This would be the year after the private plane incident. Okay, it's the following year, just putting things in order for you. They also together ran something called the Handley Family Foundation, a charitable organization. If I were the Attorney General of Louisiana, I would be looking into the finances of this thing. That's what I say. Anyway, this foundation focused on fundraising for children who were poor, cancer patients, and young professionals hoping to become more involved in the community, according to the Clarion Ledger. Now, that's a pretty broad mission for one charity. Everything from cancer to poor children and young professionals.
You hit all the notes. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I'd be digging real deep into this foundation if I were the authorities. So then in 2017, Lawrence, the husband, files for divorce from the wife, Shanda. He's the one who initiates the divorce. I find that interesting. So during that year, so now we know it's contentious, 2017, that is the same year of the kidnapping. Right? So everything's happening just a few months apart. So then Lawrence alleges in court that the wife, Shanda, attacked him and threatened him, and he said she hired a hitman to kill him. Yeah. For those of you listening, Louis and I have just shrugged our shoulders.
I don't know what to say to that, right? Is there proof to that, or is it just something he's trying to put out there to build the wall of defense around himself still?
I have no idea. I have no idea, but I do find it very interesting that that allegation made in court records is exactly the MO that plays out from him to her.
Right.
So now, Shanda herself, the wife, was charged with destroying property and shooting into the wall of the couple's camp. That's the camp in Mississippi where he offered the gold bars to the kidnappers. This is where she allegedly was being taken by the kidnappers. So a lot happens on this property. So that was in March of 2017, but a judge later acquitted her of that. And Shanda claimed that Lawrence installed a tracking device on her phone, had spyware on her computer, and was sending her threatening texts, this all before the abduction, and warning her, and this was his quote to his estranged wife, warning her of Armageddon.
Yeah.
He's gonna get her, and he tried. Is that, I mean, honestly, this is like a really bad movie.
Yeah. And one of the text messages during that same scenario that's described, he sent a text that reads, "We will take her first and let you suffer for a while before putting you out of your misery." That's him to her. So these two were a pair. They had some friction back and forth. But he acted on it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and it's not that the reason I always like to include some cases of those who are wealthy and privileged is because when it comes to crime, while yes, oftentimes if the poor suffer the most, but honestly, crazy rich people, okay?
Yeah.
Crazy rich people.
The two thugs that drowned were just that, and he had the ability to talk them into doing something and to make an offer to them that they couldn't, in their mind, couldn't refuse. The worth of 19 gold bars? I don't know offhand, but it's got to be multi-millions for this little excursion they had to take. So I don't know. I think if they would have lived, there's a good chance they would have said, "Oh, here's what happened.
Here's what really happened. Let me tell you a story."
And this is how the approach went. And so it's just, it took a lot of twists and turns, but yeah.
Well, he's behind bars. He's not going anywhere, at least for a while. Very, very strange case.
Yeah.